Welcome to He Did This to Me, the sports podcast from a father and son who happen to be mostly optimistic Knicks, Jets, and Mets fans. My name is Nick, aka Goody, and with me is my old man, aka the big guy, Noel. And just like his name, all we do is win. Let's get to the show. It's time to begin. Since we've last spoke, the Jets beat the Commanders 30-28. And then last night they played against the Browns and they lost 37-20. Against the Commanders, the two big things that jumped out to me: Brees, 191 total yards. When we can sustain drives and we can, not have just 3 and outs, then we get to feed him. We get to see how good he can be and how dynamic he is. He was the second person to get a total of over 190 yards, but he did it in, way less games than anybody else who's gotten there. The other thing that jumped out to me in that game was Jacoby Brissett. 10 of 13, 3 straight touchdowns. I've been screaming it nonstop. I think it's pretty clear now he's better than any quarterback we have on the roster other than Aaron Rodgers. And I really, really hope that we make the effort to bring him back or bring him in next year as the backup for Aaron Rodgers. And then Thursday night, obviously, totally different game. But before we jump into that, real quick, did you have anything from the Commanders game that, kind of jumped out to you that you want to comment on?
Well, I mean, it looked a little better. Last Sunday, we had a little more consistency on the offensive side of the ball, but I mean, that has to follow through. I thought that we had a little bit better offensive line play last Sunday, which I'm not sure why that was. I mean, I don't know, it might have been the alignment of the stars or something, but for some reason it looked better last Sunday, and obviously that was fleeting.
Well, don't forget the Commanders traded their 2 best defensive linemen at the deadline. So, I think that's what it comes down to. And then, obviously last night, 37-20, we're playing against a team with a very good defensive line, 3 very good ends, and we're playing against a team with the offensive line that does a decent job of giving their quarterback a little bit of time to stay upright and to be able to go through his progressions and throw the ball down the field. And, we saw what happened there.
Right. Well, something I heard too about, and I don't know who is the offensive line coach for Cleveland, but they've done a very good job because they've had injuries, but their guys can come in and play consistently and, at least give their guy somewhat an amount of time. I don't know if you heard the announcer last night, but saying where the average amount of time that Simeon was getting was 1.9 seconds, which is insane. Getting less than 2 seconds to, make a decision and make a pass. No one's going to be, very successful with that kind of time. And our offensive line is just a joke. And I'm sure we'll speak more about a certain line member who is just such a disappointment. It's just very distressing.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the offensive line coach for Cleveland because I actually just saw a mock offseason, and his name is Will Callahan. Bill Callahan is his name.
No. That used to be our offensive line coach years ago, man.
He's the offensive line coach for the Cleveland Browns since 2020.
Okay. He's the best offensive line coach in the league. He was our offensive line coach when we had Mawai and all those guys. When I believe Rex was here.
Okay. I remember.
He's a great offensive line coach. We need to go over that guy a boatload.
Well, I remember the name in the mock offseason that I saw earlier. It says that we need to go get their assistant offensive line coach. That's out that, like, his first assistant now in Cleveland. He's not leaving Cleveland to come to the Jets to be an offensive line coach. You know what I mean? He's not going to make a lateral move like that. So, no. Especially if he's having wild success there, has wild talent there, and I can't see why he would do that unless we offer him an absurd amount of money. And at the end of the day, it's still an offensive line coach. You can only offer him so much. So it's just interesting that you bring him up when, the mock that I saw said, go get his best assistant, the guy that has been learning right underneath him, which I think is a great idea. Obviously, This offseason, there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to need to do. Diving into the Thursday night game against the Browns, some of the things that just absolutely jumped off of the screen to me. First and foremost, we texted about it during the game. Tony Adams saw it, not just us. I'm sure lots of people did. Sauce's effort on some of the tackles on that touchdown to Elijah Moore, Tony Adams holds him up for a second, and Sauce has a chance to really actually deliver a hit right there. You never know what could happen. The ball could come out, it could stay in
Right.
bounds. Who knows? But I mean, especially with our defense and the amount of goal line stands we've had, the number one thing you would think you'd be trying to do right there is you're on a football field, you're a defender. How about go make a hit and go tackle this guy? He literally just looked like he totally gave up on that play, and I saw at least one other play where he just totally gave up on the play. And Sauce, I love you, man. I think you've done a great year, even though you haven't put up stats this year. You are fantastic in coverage, and I've even felt recently this week I've seen him come up and make a couple good tackles. But last night the effort was piss poor, and it makes me really really nervous just about the entire team overall when one of your leaders, when one of your best players is seeming to somewhat give up at the end of the season.
Yeah, I wasn't happy. That was a bummer. And yeah, on that particular play, I mean, all he has to do, Nick, is come in there and just deliver the hit, and you knock the guy out of bounds. Worst case scenario, you knock him out of bounds. Best case scenario, like you said, maybe you cause a fumble or something. But he came over and gave a half-hearted push, and I saw it. I don't know if you saw it, but right afterwards, Tony Adams looked at him like, "What the?" You know,
Right.
and I mean, because clearly he was trying to do what he could, and it's hard when the guy's got momentum to just put a stop to him.
Mhm.
You need your help of your other defenders there, and he did not make a good effort there. That was very
Rally to the ball. I mean,
right.
I mean, come on.
Uh, that was extremely disappointing. And like you said, I saw it a couple other times during the game. I and I hate to even say this about Sauce, but I almost felt like that was a defensive equivalent of the guy from the guy who jumped out of the way on offense for Pittsburgh a couple weeks
Pickett.
ago. Yeah,
Pickett was,
that was like a defensive equivalent to that, man. I mean, come on, man. This is what you're here for. You got to deliver. So, are you trying not to get hurt because it's the last two games of the season, and you're just, don't want to get hurt? And listen, like you said, love Sauce. Sauce is a good player, and I think, frankly, when Sauce sees that, he'll be embarrassed by it, and
hope so.
I hope so. I hope that somebody at some point asks him about it. I'd love to hear what he has to say, if he's contrite about it, or I don't think he's going to come out his face like Pickett, but
No.
he should be contrite.
No, he definitely should. And I mean, again, he's always talking about wanting to be a leader on this team. And if you want to be a leader, then that involves a certain level of accountability all of the time, not some
Yeah.
of the time. And, I saw a few times where guys are running behind the play and they're jogging. Sometimes it's like, I don't know if this guy's just a step slow or if, he's not giving the effort or what, but it's just, you don't want to put that label on a guy with that sauce when it was so glaring and so easy that you can go ahead and call it out, but you don't want to put that label on a guy when he doesn't necessarily deserve it. But it really does feel like the entire team just last night just kind of just didn't have it. That they just kind of gave up, and especially the defense. And even if you look at Salah when he's on the sideline, he seems like he's lost some pep. He's not the typical rah rah guy. He's surely not the guy we saw back in San Francisco. Now, is there as much for him to be excited and be rah rah about at the moment? No, but I want to talk a little bit more and get deep into the Salah and the Douglas thing a little bit later. But did you see that at all? Do you feel like him on the sidelines? He almost just seems like he doesn't have the same fire that he typically does.
No, not as much fire, but I also, like you said, I understand that as being there's not that much to be rah rah about, especially when you're behind all the time. When you feel like you're in the game, and I could see that. I saw somebody at at the press conference yesterday after the game or today was asking Salah, what's going on inside of you and whatnot. And he's like, what do you want me to do? Turn over the podium? I don't get the impression that Salah, he's a rah-rah guy when things are going well and he wants to pump his guys up. I don't see him as the guy as being outwardly angry or furious when things aren't going well, unless he's yelling at a ref or something. But for the most part, he remains even keel. I don't think that's a big deal. I'm not too worried about that. And that I've seen him rah-rah before, but I just think it's a tough time, man. I think human nature makes a lot of things difficult in this situation. 16th, 17th game of the season, you know the season's over. Um, but that's what they get paid for. So I did see some guys out there still giving effort, but I think it ebbs and flows, man. I think especially when you have a team that is just in such a desperate situation and just a downward spiral like we are right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything that you said is valid. I definitely there's a couple things. I mean, just around the way that we're finishing the season, the overall discipline or lack thereof that we have, everything from the penalties to, you know, your boy Michael Clemens, yelling at people in the stands. I don't. To me, those are all things that I hope that Salah, if he's not going to get openly angry about those things, maybe to the public, I'm okay with that. I hope he's getting openly angry with these people behind closed doors about these things, because there's no context that a guy yelling in the stands, there's no context that this guy not being able to understand the snap count and continually kill drives by jumping off sides, where you tell me afterwards that I'm like, it's not that big a deal. Like, no, I hope he's getting on these guys and taking them to task behind closed doors. And because right now we seem like a team that lacks discipline. We seem like a team that doesn't pay attention to details. And, that's not a good look for your head coach.
No, it's not. And the Michael Clemens thing, I mean, it's a bit of a clown show. Listen, I don't think Michael Clemens is going to be here next year.
No,
I mean,
he's not
that's the
that
way it is.
good. He's not that
He's
good.
not that good.
He's a great soundbite. And,
Yeah,
he's good at, beginning of season, slow motion walk ups to training camp. But
right.
when it
With no
really comes
shirt.
down to the game, at the end of the day, there's a lot of games where, like, he'll have like one big hit every few games. But
Right.
he's not having games like JJ or like either of the Williams brothers where it's like, oh my God, this guy was all over the field.
Yes. No, I don't think that. I obviously don't. We both don't think he'll be back, and he's been a disappointment. Frankly, I thought he was going to do more things, and I mean, like JJ has just been fantastic this year, and I even saw some flashes last night from the kid McDonald, who I think is going to play a big role next year. Because listen, we're not going to be able to keep Bryce Huff next year. We're not going to be able to keep Bryce Huff. We can't keep everybody. So I think what happens is you're going to end up letting a Bryce Huff go and letting this guy McDonald ascend, and see what happens. I think McDonald's going to be a good player, but I just think this year our defensive line staff was so crowded, it was hard for him to get on the field. I think you're going to see a lot more of him this year, especially if he bulks up similar to what JJ did in the offseason.
I hope so. I really do hope so. Because right now it's looking like a pretty terrible pick at number 15 overall. JJ, I mean, yeah, his ascension this year has been real. Unlike some other guys that we'll talk about a little bit later in the next segment, his ascension, we saw it at the beginning of the season, and it's just continued throughout the season. He should have had 2 touchdowns last night.
Yeah,
How do they? It's the one thing that I feel like they've gotten right recently, which is they don't blow it dead and they let the play out, right?
right.
And in that particular play, it was a clear fumble. It wasn't even like it was close. Like he
Beautiful.
was like, like he was falling to the ground. He was still standing straight up, balls ripped out, and they blow that one dead and don't let that play out. The NFL gets that right all the time, unless it involves the Jets. They hate us. Yeah, I don't understand. I was furious about that play, and I was also furious just because whether or not at that point, it would have had a serious impact on the game. I think that would have taken us from like 17-10 with like like 7-8. I forget exactly what the time frame was, but also I just it would have been cool for JJ to have
Sure.
2 touchdowns in one game. I mean, that play that he makes where he tips the pass and then intercepts it. It's just an all-time athletic, fantastic play. There's like guys, you always see guys attempt to do that and never actually pull it off, and he did it with ease. So
Yeah.
yeah, love to see him continuing to ascend. Hopefully, Will McDonald can be a guy that we talk about like this, next year. But at the end of the year by last year, JJ had shown a lot more than Will McDonald has done thus far this year.
Right. No, no doubt about it. But there was more of a need for a JJ last
For sure.
year. This year, I mean, listen, Will McDonald is not going to unseat Bryce Huff. I mean, Bryce, what's his name? Is it Bryce Huff?
Yeah,
What is it?
yeah, you
Okay.
got it right.
There's so many Bryces. Bryce, Brees, Huff, Hall. But no, he's not going to unseat him. So he can't get on the field if that guy's playing. Once that guy's gone, you're going to see this guy a lot, and hopefully, he can make a difference next year.
Yeah, hopefully. Your boy Hackett continues to run plays where, part of the play is that Gibson has to somehow block Myles Garrett. And I don't understand that. We've seen they even Kirk Herbstreit said it last night too. He said, yeah, asking him to block Myles Garrett probably, and I know he doesn't have to engage with him and block him. He's supposed to just get a piece of him, but he's shown over and over again that he can't do that. And Hackett
But he
continues
had
to
other
still have
plays in
that
the
be the
game,
scheme.
Nick. He had other plays in the game. I can't cite them exactly, but where he did exactly that. He just got in Myles Garrett's way for a second, and Breece Hall ran right by. That's all he has to do. Sometimes he didn't do it. Sometimes he did. But he's got to do that. He's a
I
receiver
saw the one
on a
where he got in
team.
his. I saw the one where he got in the way for a second, and then Breece Hall made a great move on Myles Garrett and got around him. But I didn't see the one where he executed the block and that led to a big run where he was in a place where he had to block Myles Garrett. I did not see that.
Nick, all Breece Hall needs sometimes is that second of daylight. And if you don't give him that, then he has no shot. But if you give him that, then he's got a shot. But sometimes he didn't even give him that. If you would just give him, if he would hold Myles Garrett up for 2 seconds sometimes, as opposed to just giving him a free rush at the runner, which is what happened a couple times, the play gets blown up. But he just, sometimes if you can't even engage the guy for 2 seconds, I mean, and that really what it comes down to, in my opinion, when you're looking at it, is move your feet. Because every time he was unsuccessful in making a block, it's because his feet were here and he was reaching out here trying to block. That's never successful. Get your feet in front of the guy first, and then you can make a block. But when you're doing stupidity like that, it's not going to be successful. Gibson, I was a little disappointed in Gibson at times last night too, Nick. I mean, there are a couple times to me where like you're behind in the game, you realize what our situation is. I just feel like, dude, man, try your hardest and whatnot. And I felt like, he's like running out of bounds.
Running out of bounds or it seemed like multiple times last night. I mean, everyone from Trevor Siemian, he's trying as hard as he can. But that one where he ended up falling a little bit short for the first down, it even seemed like with that, it was like, did you know where the sticks were? Like, just reach your hands out. Like, you're so close. Just reach your hands out. And with Gibson, Dad, I'm sorry. I understand that, sometimes you're going to need your receivers to make blocks and things like that. If you go into this game and your offensive game plan, when you're drawing it up, knowing what we've seen from Gibson, knowing who Myles Garrett is, and part of your game plan was ever a scheme, there's ever a play where you're going to ask him to try and block him, I think that you're a moron. If you're Hackett and you went in with that thought process, you're not only a moron, you're insane. We've seen this. We know what's going on. We know who the people involved are. We know that that's going to get blown up 8 out of 10 times.
Nick, when you make that game plan, you're saying to your X or Y receiver, you're saying Y receiver block down on that end. You don't know who's playing end over here. Myles Garrett moves from side to side, moves in the middle.
Anybody, say it was what's their other really good one? It's not Sweat. Who is it? They have another one. They have listen.
So then who do you want to block?
You know who the X and Y is. You know who the X and Y is.
Who's going to block them?
There's plenty of schemes that do not involve the slot receiver coming down and blocking the defensive end. There's plenty of schemes that don't involve that. And I don't think that the same reason I think that Hackett lacks awareness of the situation. I think that Hackett just runs it like it's X and Y. Instead of just like when he had Garrett throw a pass right after he hurt his elbow. I think that Hackett I think he runs it like it's X and Y, and it's like this guy does this and we do this, and as long as we execute, but I don't think he takes into account the fact that Gibson can't block. He's shown it over and over again since he started getting playing time. He can't block. He's a terrible blocker.
Okay. We disagree. We agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Hackett's made a great game plan or anything
Hackett
like
sucks.
that, but I just realized that I don't think it's as simple as the way you're looking at it, but we'll never know. We're not Nate Hackett.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think he's a little bit too simple. But Becton, I mean, first in sacks, second in penalties among offensive linemen. Last night was A real tough one for a guy who was playing for a contract because it was blaring to anybody that can see, like, very, very, very clear that he's just not a starting tackle in this league. He's just not. And if he's a starting tackle on your team, expect the other defensive ends to be in your quarterback's face or, swallowing your running back paws, whenever they pretty much feel like it, because this guy, he's a cone out there. He's out there. He looks so slow sometimes, and that's if we even get the playoff if he doesn't jump. Because as I just mentioned, he's also not just a leader in sacks, but also a leader in penalties. It's just so much promise for this guy. The one thing that we thought that we really wanted to see was Becton be able to stay healthy, and unfortunately, even with health, he's just talent, physical, whatever it may be, he's just not good enough.
No, he's not the guy, unfortunately. We'll clearly move on from him this offseason. I don't know that he'll be in the league in a couple of years because, I mean, listen, obviously he's, a few donuts from being out of the league, and he's got to, it's amazing. It's sad because he's done great things in getting himself in shape, and getting himself, he looks like to be in better physical condition than we've ever seen him in the past. But so what are we to believe then? Is that it's one of two things, if you ask me. Either that his performance his rookie year just could never be the same after that knee injury. Is that the issue? Or were we somehow fooled, hoodwinked by his performance his rookie year? I mean, I don't understand. We haven't seen that performance again. So what changed?
I think when you look at Becton, Dad, and obviously this is, totally just my opinion. But I think when you look at Becton is the type of guy that if things are going well around him, then he can excel. But as soon as things around him aren't going well, and I'm not even necessarily talking about like the fact that, he is playing with different offensive linemen all the time, or that, the left, his guard right next to him, Langston Tomlinson, that he sucks. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that just like he's a front runner when the teams go, when he's got something to play for and everybody's really, giving him some credit and everybody's, boosting him up, that he'll play well. And I think he's the type of guy that, clearly he has mental lapses in games. And he's the type of guy that when things aren't going well, that he starts to lose a little bit of focus and he starts to, man, fuck this shit, man, blah, blah, blah. And, and he spirals and it gets worse and worse. Clearly seemed like it happened with him last night, because towards the end of the game, the jumping off sides, it seemed like it was happening, once or twice a drive.
Right, but I mean, well, look, I don't know how we can read into it that he's just, just saying F it and just doesn't care. I don't know. I have no idea if the man feels that way. I just feel like he's not playing well, and I just feel like he's not good enough. And I think that's what we see is just he's not good enough.
But like you said, his first year, he seemed like he had all the ability.
I
It seemed
know.
like he had the foot beat. And then now all of a sudden, it seems like guys just run around him and he barely moves. To me, I don't know exactly what it is. I'm grabbing at straws here, trying to figure it out. But I just overall, I don't know. I just don't ever want to see him in a Jets uniform ever again. Get him out of here.
Yeah.
We need to do something different at left or right tackle. And yeah, we'll see. Like you said, I would not be surprised if this is a guy that a couple years from now he's out of the league. A very interesting stat that I saw since week 5, 109 penalty yards on Mekhi Becton. Your boy Allen and active Lazard, he's had 109 receiving yards since week 5 as well. Interesting little coinky dink there.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
all right, so to talk about this game a little bit more, one thing I did wanted to bring up, shout out to Buffalo Jets fan on Twitter for breaking this down, but it's something that's glaring to anybody who's a Jets fan watching the juxtaposition of us versus Cleveland last night, where they are playing with their fourth different quarterback. They're starting their 10th different offensive line combo. They lost their star running back in game 2 of the season, and very early in the game, they're missing their top 2 wide receivers. Yet they're still able to, for whether it be coaching, whether it be depth, whether it be decisions that they made once some of these different developments happened, they're in the playoffs and they're sitting at 11-5. And, it definitely shines a light on some of the this mismanagement and some of the mistakes that everybody from the top down has made with the Jets thus far this season.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't looked pretty. I think it's more coaching and depth. I mean, obviously they have some players, but I think it's mostly coaching, Nick. That's why I was bringing up that guy, Bill Callahan. It's just, and I mean, listen, I didn't even know Bill Callahan was the coach till last night there in the offensive line, but it makes sense to me. I've always known of him to be the best, and I heard Bart Scott saying the same thing, the best offensive line coach I've ever known of. He just didn't do a very good job when he was a head coach. He was head coach at the Raiders for a minute and just got didn't do well there. But yeah, Nick, I mean, and again, everything else follows that offensive line. Quarterbacks playing well is a total product of the offensive line. Listen, people say, oh, if we had brought in Flacco. If we had brought in Flacco behind our offensive line, it wouldn't have worked. Okay, 100%. So everybody saying, oh, if we had Flacco, it'd be different. No, it wouldn't have, because Flacco can sometimes move out of the pocket, especially if he can move one direction. But when you're playing behind the Jets offensive line, you got guys coming from both sides or straight up the middle, Flacco would have gotten crushed. He would have gotten hurt in no time.
Jets fans that say that kill me, because the Jets fans that are like, oh, we should have brought in Flacco, it kills me when they say that, because my thing is I mean, did you guys just become Jets fans? Because we saw what Flacco looked like when he didn't have a good line, and he was throwing moon balls in the air because guys were on top of him immediately. Flacco, when he has a line, he has a decent running game, he can be good. If you would have brought Flacco in with our offensive line, he would have been good. I don't think Rodgers would have done that well with this offensive line.
I don't think so. No.
I think at the end of the day, you know what? Saleh and Joe Douglas, they got lucky that now they get a do-over in the offseason to be able to bring back a team that gives this guy a chance, because if Rodgers would have played on that offensive line, we would have been exposed this year and they'd both be out.
Yeah, potentially. And Rodgers would have gotten hurt. That's why when everybody was talking about, oh, bring Rodgers back, I was like, you guys are nuts, man. Oh, I want to see Rodgers for this or that. That would have been insane. He would have gotten hurt again, or potentially. I mean, it just would not. It would be malpractice, honestly, to put Rodgers behind that line we saw Simeon playing behind last night. You know, this guy's just come back off an injury. He's 40 plus years old. Come on, man. Let's just cool our jets, literally, and wait till next season. You know, I mean, that's what we have to do, and we have to retool this offensive line. We have to go buy a left tackle from somewhere, and we have to draft some good offensive linemen. I mean, it looks like this guy, Carter Warren, whenever he's out there, is playing halfway decent. Shipman is okay, you know, although he gets the occasional.
Yeah, but Carter Warren, even though I think Carter Warren, it could be okay, he still needs to come into the season next year as a backup.
Right. He's a depth piece.
We need that depth.
He's a depth piece. Yeah, yeah. He's absolutely a depth piece. He's the depth piece while you don't have Billy Turnstile out there. Okay.
Oh, listen, I don't ever want to see him again. Get him out of here.
No, Laken Tomlinson, another guy. Get him
out of here. Out of here.
Get him out.
On that quarterback sneak, he got jumped straight down to the ground on that quarter. First of all, it was one of the worst. Like, we didn't even get close. Usually, when you're watching it in real time, you try to tell yourself, did we get it? I was just like, we didn't even fucking get close. Like,
no, I knew we didn't get close. And it's all the offensive line. I mean, you know, the quarterback can do but so much in that situation. Mind you now, Joe Flacco's a big friggin' guy. I noticed that more than ever when I saw him stand out there talking to guys before the game. This guy's bigger than Quinnen Williams, dude.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's only just 6'5".
It's not just height. He's a broad guy, too. He's not just a tall string bean.
And he always has been. Even when he first came in, he was never a string bean.
No, he's a big guy, but so he gets a little more done, but also it's all offensive line, man. If those guys are hitting your quarterback before he can literally grab the ball and tuck it, he's not going to get a first down. I don't care if he's Jalen Hurts and he's squatting 500 pounds. If he's getting hit in the backfield by these defensive linemen, he ain't going nowhere.
Right. But everybody makes that about Jalen Hurts. It's really about Jason Kelce. That's the
Jason Kelce and the guards.
Right.
The guards are getting that, 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 yard of push.
Right.
And that's it. That's all you need. But if you don't get that, guess what? It ain't going to work.
Yeah. Now we got one more game against the Patriots. Obviously I always want to beat the Patriots. It'll be Simeon again. No way Zach plays. I actually saw Rich Samini said something about the fact that, kind of, something that you and I have talked about is the fact that I actually do think that Zach is hurt, but I would not blame him if he was just like, it's just over with this. And Rich Samini kind of alluded to that yesterday. And yeah, no way that Zach, if I'm Zach, there's no way I'm coming back and I'm playing behind that line. We'll trade him for a fifth or sixth round pick, and that'll just be another long line in the list of quarterback failures for the Jets, unfortunately. But I always want to beat the Patriots. They're down bad, we're down bad. Give me one more game to beat. Because at the end of the day, I'm never going to be one of those guys who roots for us to lose. I don't care what the draft position is. I'll look at it retroactively and say, damn, we should have lost that game. We would have had Trevor Lawrence, something like that. But in the moment, when the game's, in the heat of it, I'm always going to be rooting for the team to win. And, hopefully we can end the season on a high note next year, and then it'll be interesting to see how we, handle things this offseason.
Yeah, I'm not feeling confident about the game against the Patriots, even though they suck. Their defense is halfway decent, and we suck. And dude, I wouldn't bet the house on the Jets. Well, obviously not, but I wouldn't even bet. I wouldn't bet my dining room chair on the Jets for this coming weekend. Honestly, it's not a good look, and Belichick's guys are going to come out there to play.
Yeah.
I don't know if I hope we're out there giving the best effort, but I don't know. I just don't know.
And how poetic would it be for Belichick's last game as Patriot coach to just get that one last win against the Jets? That just seems like it's going to happen.
Are we saying like it's a sure thing that he's out as Patriots coach?
No. It's just obviously it's been rumored. Some people say that decision has already been made. Who knows exactly what it is? But if that is the case, it would only make sense that his last game is a win against the Jets.
That's true.
And yeah, I mean, well, what could have been the season of what could have been, but it'll be very interesting to see how we handle things in the off season. It'll be interesting. I think that we definitely have to get that second weapon. When it comes to the outside at wide receiver, I think that the defense is going to just basically stand pat. I think that Mosley is. I'm a little nervous about signing up for a whole other year, Mosley. I think he's the age that he is. And I thought last night there was a couple times that he looked really, really slow. There's another time that he made a really good play. I know he was the one that made that. And he seems like he's typically going to give you the effort. I'm just wondering if he can get to the end of a season and be flying around like he is at the beginning of a season at his, advanced age in this league. Not sure, but we'll have to, as always, wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I support Mosley, but I hear you. I mean, listen, nobody beats Father Time. But the thing I like about Mosley is he does bring it. He does play hard, and when he gets to people, he just smashes them. I mean, he ended Elijah Moore's night and maybe his season last night with that tackle, man. I mean, when he tackles people, sometimes he hits them really hard, which is kind of what I thought was going to be coming from Michael Clemens, but he just
can't get to anybody.
Right, and he wants to run around with a barbed wire bat instead of making plays on the field. But I like Mosley, and I think Mosley's a leader, and Mosley puts us in position to, he quarterbacks our defense, which I think has been very vital all season. Not last night, obviously.
Well, remember Mosley he's also one that broke up your boy Tyrod too. He's
That's what I'm saying, dude. He hurts people, man.
He brings it for sure. He's got that Bane persona that he likes to put out there, and he brings it on the field. I just thought there was especially early in the game, it was just, a ball that he couldn't quite jump up to. Another ball where a guy turns the corner on him, and it's like a tight end, it's Njoku, and he just almost seems like he pulls up like, oh, I can't catch him. And
but he wasn't going to catch Njoku.
I know, but
fast.
What? He's decently fast. He's still a tight end. And my thing is that when I saw the replay, I thought that I don't typically just see Mosley pull up like that. Even if he's not going to catch to the guy, I feel like Mosley's the guy that even, if the guy ends up having to cut back, Mosley's the guy who now he has his chance and he's stripping the ball or something like that. That jumped off the screen to me. It made me a little bit nervous, but he did follow it up with some very good hustle plays. So, I don't know. We got to do something to keep him young between now and then. And A lot of big things, a lot of big changes happening. Let's go ahead and pivot to the Knicks. Knicks, since we last spoke, have lost 2 out of 3. They split with the Bucks. They lost on your birthday, then came back on Christmas morning to make it a Merry Knicksmas. They won against the Bucks, so we get the split with the Bucks. Brunson was brilliant in that game, 38 points. He was one of 4 guys with over 20. Him, Julius, RJ, and Quickley. What do you think about the Christmas game? And anything from that game jump out that you want to talk about?
Well, the Christmas game, I mean, hey, we played well, just active on defense, active hands, and like you said, another Brunson burner. Got to hope to get more of those. And, the whole team played well. Unfortunately, that didn't carry over. RJ played well. I love the way he played that game, but we just have to get more consistency where that's concerned, especially defensively.
Yes, we did play better defense in that second game against the Bucks. We were running them off of their 3-point shots, and we were just, contesting at the rim a lot more. We basically controlled that game from wire to wire. They made a run at the end of the game to make it somewhat interesting, but we were able to hit our free throws and take care of the ball at the end and be able to pull out the win. Then on Wednesday, we lose 129 to 120 from OKC. Really, really good young team. The kid Jalen Williams absolutely killed us. 36 points, very efficient, 13 of 17. SGA is that dude. I was an early adopter on him. Everybody knows now he's, one of the best young guards. Like he's the type of guy, along with Brunson, where I tell Nazi, I told my son, watch him and how he plays because it's so controlled and it's a game that anybody can duplicate. It's just about his overall IQ and his overall skill level. That kid Chet is a problem. He had 22 points, a lot of big
He's very
blocks.
good.
He really, really made you miss Mitch. Seeing him on the floor was like, we need our other guy to be able to be that long, athletic, change the entire game type of guy. Because on defense, he was doing that to us. You saw earlier he was blocking shots. Then I saw as the game went along, some of our guys were thinking twice before they went into the paint because of that guy. And it really just made you miss that guy for us. Julius had a decent game. I know everybody knows I'm president of the Julius Randle fan club, but Julius, the I just got annoyed with the ref and I want to stay back and argue with the ref while the rest of the play goes down and ends up in a wide open 3. You have to cut that shit out. Plain and simple. It can't happen. Not once, not twice, and he's been doing better. I've seen him not do that in the moment and then wait till there's a break in the action and talk to the ref. But he did that at least once in that game. And that's just something that, again, I hope that, like you said before with Sauce, I hope somebody's showing him that. And he's
Right,
embarrassed by it, and they're taking him to task for it.
right.
And the one other note there before I let you dive in is that I feel like Brunson's getting very fetty with the refs. The refs do not give him the calls that you see some of these other big time guards, especially a good example is your boy Dame Dalla. He does not get the calls that some of those guys get, and he's getting annoyed by it. And then obviously the thing that we're going to come back to, the biggest thing is RJ Barrett. Talk to me about the game. Talk to me about how you're feeling about RJ and what that game said to you about his place within the Knicks and what we can eventually be with him being the player that he is.
Well, that game, like you said, we definitely miss Mitch. Our guys thinking twice and doing stupid crap when they go to the hoop because of Holmgren's length is exactly what Mitch was doing to opposing teams. You had guys thinking twice and throwing the ball out when they had layups because they're afraid Mitch is lurking. So we were running into that. They have a very good, young, very long team, and their length really showed itself and made us, a lesser team. And it showed in just how they play and, and certain deflected balls and all that. Their length made a big difference in our game. RJ, man, I've been reading online the last couple of days. A lot of people are screaming, maybe put RJ on the bench, bring Quick in to start, which I don't think that works. But I just don't think it works just because of the size thing. We'd just be very small. RJ at least gives us a little more size. But RJ's been very disappointing, man. He's been incredibly inconsistent. We were pulling for him early in the season. Um, I'm starting to, in my mind at least, entertain more thoughts where RJ ends up being on the trading block, and RJ ends up being a piece that we trade to get somebody else, some young guy with a little more length and a little more consistent shooting. Because, I mean, length or no length, if RJ can shoot consistently, I don't care. But he's just not very consistent from outside, man. And you can see his confidence waning along with our confidence in him. And it's distressing to say the least because we want RJ to succeed, but I don't know, man. It's starting to get a little dicey, and I think the Madison Square Garden crowd may start showing their dissatisfaction with RJ at some time soon.
Yeah, especially if he keeps going, 1 of 7 from three. That's the
Yeah,
thing, man. Listen, there's just too many nights where he's 5 of 14 from the floor, 1 of 7 from three. He's not consistent outside. He's not consistent inside. He's not consistent from the mid range. As we've spoken about it before, he has more shots that come off his hand that you can just tell as soon as he comes off that there's no chance it's going in. Listen, RJ Barrett, I have tried to be supportive. I've tried to be patient. You can check the tape. I've over and over been the guy saying, this is my guy. He's making the ascension. But when it comes down to it, he's just not that dude. He's just not.
yeah,
It's been too long now. And when
yeah,
you look at the Jalen Williams of the world, where he's scoring, you know, 30 something points on super efficient numbers, 36 points on 13 of 17. And for the season, this guy, it's his second year in the league. He's averaging 18 points on 52, 42, 87 splits. If we could have RJ be that consistent of a guy, it totally changes our team. Now,
totally.
when it comes to putting him on the trade block, that's the thing that you gotta be real nervous about now because his value is plummeting. And then you get to a point where coming up on next year, he's making more money than Brunson. So now he almost becomes untradeable. Nobody's taking on that contract for that level of player. So he has to step it up. Unfortunately, I don't even know if we're going to be able to trade him for, a player. It's like, somebody that we've talked about recently as far as like OG on an OB or whoever. Ain't nobody giving up any of these guys for RJ right now. So he has to step it up to even be the guy that is the trade bait. I mean, it's just so frustrating to watch. And the thing that had all of Knicks Twitter on fire was with 3.5 minutes left to go in the game, and Tibbs brings in RJ for Quick. Now, at that point, Quickley, he was on fire. He, in the end of the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter, he was absolutely balling, keeping us in the game. We were down by 4 at the beginning of the fourth. Then they stretched the lead. Quick hits a in and out jumper and then a three to be able to get us back. And then Tibbs puts in RJ. Now, first of all, I texted you immediately. What is going on? Even you said it. You never questioned Tibbs. We're like, yeah, I'm not really sure about that one right there. And I typically don't like go on Twitter or go on the blogs during the games because I'm just, I'm locked in. I'm watching the game. I typically like to read those things post game. But I hopped on Twitter just because I was like, I want to know, are other people seeing this? I mean, and not just in the moment, but then and since throughout the last few days, all anybody could talk about is why and what on earth was the thought process behind that. After the game, they asked Tibbs, and he says, first of all, he starts off with something about how everybody's got to sacrifice. He says that every single time anybody asks him anything about minutes. But I was glad that also a reporter post game immediately asked him and wanted to hear what Tibbs had to say. And he said something about length. The thing about that is that every single metric in the world, not just this year, but over the last 3 years, has Quick as a better defender than RJ. And if you watch the game like you and I do, RJ's a little bit longer, but Quick is almost just as strong and he's more active defensively. And that's beyond all the other things that I think that Quick does better than RJ does. I thought that was a terrible move on Tibbs' part. RJ, of course, immediately comes in, throws the stupidest pass ever for a turnover, and then has a wide open three that he clanks off the iron, and right there, pretty much the game is over. I didn't like that move by him, and all the numbers pan when you look at them over, like I said, the last 3 years of this season. I mean, RJ's played 100 more minutes than Quick just in the last month. Quick is averaging 5 minutes less per game. We've asked that. He's played over 30 minutes, only one game this entire season. It's just, it gets to a point where this guy has to, like, Quick is a more valuable player than RJ, and he has to play more than him. I'm not saying that Quick needs to be inserted into the starting lineup, but I will tell you that the Quickley, Josh Hart, Julius, Hartenstein, Brunson lineup, not only is it by far our best lineup as far as just overall plus minus, but it's an elite lineup amongst the NBA when those people all play together. So I don't know that we need to pull Quickley and put him in the starting lineup, but this whole thing of Brunson and Quickley not playing together, it's just all the numbers say that our team is better when those two are on the floor together. And I think especially in clutch moments and big moments, Quickley has got to be getting the minutes over RJ.
I think you're going to see that change happening. I think I always tell you this. I think it's very difficult as a coach because everything you do is going to be second guessed and looked at in the rearview mirror. So, no, Nick, I know you said that to me. You texted me at the time. But the deal is this, Nick. If he had put RJ in and RJ had been successful and we'd come back and won the game, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. We wouldn't be saying, oh, well, Nick, you said he should have kept Quickley in the game. We would have said, hey, he made a good move. We put RJ in. We won. Great.
But that's not fair, no, because I often come on here and say, hey, and I said this and I was wrong.
I know that, Nick. I know that, but it's fine, Nick. So you were right. You were right.
It's not just we were. It was clear to everyone. It was clear to everyone but Tibbs.
It was clear to everyone, Nick, but it was clear to everyone because the game went south right there. Had the game gone, people made statements, Nick, but had the game gone well after that, none of those statements would be talked about right now. And nobody would be talking about all the people who said, oh, we should have kept RJ in the game. They would have just said, hey, good move by this guy. Now, I think there's been a lot of times where RJ has sat on the bench in the fourth quarter and Quick has gotten some minutes. I think we're going to see more and more of that. I think Thibodeau wants RJ to be successful because if RJ could step it up and play like he played at the start of this year, we're a much better team with Quick also coming in. He wants to get RJ back up to that. I think you're going to have to let that want slip to the wayside because you know what? He's not getting it done. And the fact of the matter is, we say RJ needs to step up. I think we need to be realistic here. We all want that, but I mean, I think RJ's shown us we have enough of a body of work now to know that it's not. I'm really starting to believe that it's just not going to happen, man.
It's never consistently going to happen. Never consistently.
It's not going to happen. No, he's going to be an 18 to 20 point a game scorer in this league, but be somewhat inconsistent. And he's not a dynamic player, man. I mean, I'm sorry. I've argued over and over with many people about this, your uncle being one of them. And I hate to admit it, but he's right. He's not the guy.
Yeah, he's not the guy. I don't know. I just think that at the end of the day, he's going to show you flashes every once in a while, but some guys just never become consistent shooters, and he's just one of these guys. And in today's NBA, every fucking body can shoot, it seems like. And having a guy who's your small forward who you cannot count on, and teams are starting to leave him alone at the 3-point line. Between that and the airballed layups, it's just like it's just too much at this point. And I don't understand what was different at the very beginning of this season, or even say like in the playoffs last season after those first couple games. I don't understand what he bottled up and got right there. But that's the difference between guys like Julius and Brunson, who they have sustained time periods where they play at elite levels, and they might have a couple off games, and then they have more sustained time periods of them being at elite levels. RJ, it's like an EKG machine. You know what I mean? Like right. It's all over the place. And come on, man. Fuck.
But you're saying you don't understand what the difference is.
He's just not that good.
Right, Nick. I mean, that's just part of being inconsistent.
I
He
know.
was good then, he's bad now. He'll be good at some point this season. He'll be bad again. It's the EKG, like you said. And the thing with RJ that kills me, Nick, is that he's left-handed, and sometimes when he shoots the ball, like you say, it looks like as soon as he lets the ball go, it's going to miss. And sometimes it looks like he's a right-hander shooting left-handed.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, like it's not his natural just like shoot for it's just too much like thinking and mechanics and just like it's like when he catches the ball behind the 3-point line, it's like the weight of every single Knicks fan that's watching at home or on TV, and that we're all just like
Everybody's holding their breath.
like every
Everybody's holding their
it's
breath.
like he feels it. It's like he feels it. Maybe we need to do like some collective meditation as Knicks fans or some shit, and just like get to the point where we're all just at a perfect zen when RJ shoots, and maybe that's what we need. I don't fucking know, but at this point, I'm just so tired of it, man. And like you said, Dad, I got excited at the beginning of this year. I thought it happened. I thought it happened. Got the migraines. He's went straight down, straight south since then. And I mean, some of his numbers over the last 20 games, and especially
Brutal.
if you put them next to Quickley's, where he's shooting like 29% from three, and still getting 100 more minutes than Quickley. I'm sorry, but Tibbs, and I hear what you're saying is that when revisionist history is a lot it's a lot easier to look at things in hindsight. I do hear that. I don't think this particular example with Tibbs subbing him was the best example, just because I think that like it seems like I said everybody in the Knicks sphere was like, what are we doing immediately? And then he proceeded to throw the ball away, miss a wide open three, and just look like just look like a sad puppy for the rest of the game as the game went away. It sucks because that did you see the your boy Julius had a crazy dunk against what's his name, your boy Chet Holmgren, in the waning seconds of that game, where Holmgren went up and tried to challenge him and Julius cocked it back and banged it. But because of the time that happened, nobody knows. It'll never be on any
Yeah,
highlight
didn't
reel
make a
ever.
difference. Yeah, very distressing. I mean, I mean, listen, that was a tough loss. That all of that said, we're playing pretty well as a team. We have a tough game against Orlando Saturday.
No,
That'll be
we play the Magic in an hour, like an hour after we get off of this pod. Play the
tonight.
Magic
I thought it was a Saturday. Oh,
tonight.
my bad.
And then we play the Pacers tomorrow.
That's right. I'm sorry. Pacers tomorrow night. That's right. Which again is an interesting game with your man, the top
Obi coming off the bench.
Obi coming off the bench. I mean, Obi. I mean, I'm sorry, man, but all the people in the Obi hive who were screaming him get play over Julius. Come on, man, stop that talk. You got to realize now that was incredibly foolish to even make those kinds of suggestions. Okay, Obi is at best an average player and a much less than average defender, and he can't shoot. I mean, he can't pull up for a shot. He can only do like a set shot 3-pointer, but in no way is that guy ever putting the ball on the floor, crossing somebody over, and pulling up for a jumper. That's simply not in his game. So I think these next two games are important. I mean, again, it's the NBA. We win those two games, we're riding high.
Yeah, but we lose those two games and we're 17 and 15, and we're like, oh
now
shit.
we're stressed, we're distressed. So yeah, it's an absolute roller coaster. You know, nothing's set in stone. We have to keep it up. Right now, I believe I just read earlier, we're like in the seventh seed right now in the
Yeah.
East. So that's not great, but that of course is going to change many times in the next few months. So
The seating
just got to stay strong.
the seating thing, the record thing, I try not to make too big of a deal. I try not to make too big of a deal of those things this early in the season. But when it comes to these next few games, the thing I want to see, free my man Quick. Free my man Quick. All right.
I think you're
Quick
going to start
needs
seeing
more minutes, point blank, point period. He needs to finish games. There's no ifs, ands, or but it about no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tibbs, you're my guy. I think you're a great coach. I think we play hard. We play defense. I even think that you've gotten a little bit more creative on the offensive end. But if you don't get Quick more minutes, I don't care how you do it. If you don't figure out a way to get Quick more minutes, then you're failing this team, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, I don't know if you saw this, but his aunt retweeted something about like somebody saying somebody had a breakdown of like, the fact that he's averaging less minutes, but he's so much more efficient and such a good player. His aunt retweeted that. And that's the thing. It's a matter of time if things keep going the way that they are, that his people are going to start saying some shit and he's going to be. If I was Quick, I'd be a little bit disgruntled right now. I respect the hell out of him that does not seem that way in any way thus far. But if I were him, shit, if he was my son, I'd be like, what is going on? Why can't we get him on the floor more? He deserves to play more.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I said, I think you will see him play more. But I also think Quick is very tied at the hip with Tibbs. He's a very much in Tibbs' corner. He's a Tibbs guy. And he loves Tibbs because, Tibbs has made his career. I mean, so many guys all want to scream about, oh, Tibbs doesn't play the young guys. He doesn't play the young guys. Yeah, he does. He plays young guys that deserve to play, like Quick, and he's played other young guys like Mitch, who've gone out there and done the job. But you know what? He could stand to play Quick more, and I think he will.
I hope so. I hope so.
Me and you both.
So Russell Wilson, this week it was announced that he was going to be benched for the last two games of the season. And then it was reported that he will be released in this offseason. Currently, he's sitting at 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3 rushing touchdowns. The Broncos still have a chance to make the playoffs in these last two games. He is owed 39 million next year, no matter what. 37 million would be guaranteed the following year if he was still on the roster after March. They still take a cap hit next year of like 80 something million. I don't necessarily really, again, I don't understand the NFL cap and exactly how that works. But one thing, before I kick it to you, a couple things I want to say on this. One thing about Russell Wilson is that I've never really understood is that I don't understand all the hate that this guy gets. It seems like he is hated on so much. And as somebody who's a Jets fan, I would have loved to have had this guy been the quarterback of my team for a decade, first and foremost. He seems to be a nice guy. Is he a little corny? Is he a little cringy sometimes? Sure. But, I could think of worse things that my quarterback could be. Never gets in any sort of trouble. You got other teams doing things like playing future songs during the intros when he's out there because, his current wife, Sierra, her her former her or the father of her child is future. So you got other teams doing stuff like that. Like I almost feel like as a league and as the shield, like if I was on the opposing team and somebody said they were going to do some shit like that, I'd be like, no, we're not doing that. Why are we doing? Like we're not. We're gonna his baby mom's old baby dad. We're gonna get in his head. Like no, how about we just go out there and beat them at football? I think that's some bush league pussy shit to do, honestly. And I just think that the way that this guy is covered, and it's everywhere. It's online with the different memes. It's in my group chats with certain people who just hate this guy, and I've never understood all the flack that he gets.
People get caught up with a narrative and they buy in and then they run with it. Not because of any reason that they have or anything that they know about that person, but because that's the narrative that's spoken about. So they think that, yeah, he's this or he's that. And when you ask them why, well, everybody says that. That doesn't make it so all the time. So I think I don't know exactly. I mean, look, I think that Peyton is benching him for a couple reasons. One, he clearly wants him out of there and want Jared Stidham, seriously. So he wants to go with one of his own people for next year. He'll bring in another quarterback, I'm sure. Also, too, is it a controlled thing? I don't know, but there's no way you could tell me that the Denver Broncos, who have a chance to make it to the playoffs, are going to be better the next two games or the next game because of with Jared Stidham in there instead of Russell Wilson. There's no way.
No
There's
way.
no way. So I don't know what that's about. I do know if Sean Payton was coach of the Jets, I would be upset about this. I'd be like, what are you doing?
Well, you heard what he said. It's about the financials. It's about the fact that if Russell gets hurt in these next two games, the way that his contract is worded, then those next 2 years would be guaranteed. So they'd be on the hook for that.
Right. So that's all that's about. That's all that's about.
You know what? No, but you know what? Unfortunately, I don't think that's all it's about, Dad. I don't. And first of all, I think Sean Payton is a dick. All right. I think he's just an absolute douchebag of an individual. And I think he has showed from the very beginning that he did not want Russell Wilson to be his quarterback, and he's
Right.
done everything to back that up as the season has gone along. Now, remember, this is a guy who's got Bounty Gate on his resume. He comes in on that first press conference and he's killing Russell Wilson. He's killing him. He's, saying things about how he needs to not be out here kissing babies and doing all these different things. And you know what I find very interesting about that is, and I'll give Ryan Clark the credit, he brought this up. Drew Brees was the most baby kissing this motherfucker ever, a few years ago. He was Mr., out here doing everything in front of every camera, doing all the commercials, his whole family. They're out on the field. He's throwing passes, all that. And he didn't have anything ever to say about him. So he comes in, he has that initial press conference. Then he starts killing Russ from the very beginning. Then he has the Hackett comments, which just shows more about how his character and how he handles himself, and the straight undressing Wilson on the sideline during games, which, as you and I have talked about before, when we talked about Dable, when we've talked to anybody, I don't see what you get out of that. I don't see how that's a good way to handle your business, especially when we're talking about the quarterback. Not everybody's the same on the team. The quarterback's different. And this guy is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He deserves a little bit of respect. And what did Russell Wilson do on the flip side? He kept his mouth shut. He did everything this guy asked to do. He switched up his game. He made sure he was in better shape because this guy wants him to scramble more. He is hitting the check down. He's doing all the things. And this guy still does him this way and shits on him the entire year. I'm sorry, man, but Sean Payton, I am so glad he is nowhere close to my organization. He has, again, a lot of people talk shit about just what an asshole that guy is. And the fact that they have given him the keys and are now allowing him to totally run this organization and push out this Hall of Fame quarterback that they just recently invested all this money. That trade now looks terrible. All the picks and everything that they gave up for him. And I just think overall, like I said, this guy Sean Payton, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way they're treating Russell on the way out the door. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of Sean Payton's, but I just think that it's just a bad look for the Broncos. And I get it. If it's just a financial move, and especially, there might be like GM or owner of the team saying, "Hey, look, we got to get this guy Russell out of here. So if we want to get him out of here, you can't play him the last two games." It might be as simple as that, Nick.
I don't believe that. I believe Sean Payton's the one that's spearheading it. I don't know anything. It's just what I believe.
Right. It might be, might not. And any way you look at it, Russell gets the short end. But listen, you get the short end because you're getting bounced out, but you're also walking away with, however many millions of dollars, and he'll land somewhere else and he will play. I think he'll start for somebody next year. He's good. He's a starter in this league, man. And if someone can get him on a team to be a backup, he's better than a backup, man. He's better than Baker Mayfield. He's better than a lot of starters in this league. Yeah. Okay, he's better than the kid down in Carolina. He's he's good. He's a good player, man. And I mean, if you have a good team around him, come on, man. If somehow Aaron Rodgers was not going to be around for next year, I'd be like, the Jets need to run out and try to get Russell Wilson.
Damn right.
Because I mean, 20 some odd touchdowns and 8 interceptions when they started out like shit, 1-5.
Right.
Come on, man. That's excellent, man. That's fantastic.
And the thing is, they started out like that, and your boy Peyton was criticizing Russell in the media, and then Russell turns it around, does all the things that he's asking him to do, runs them on a leading streak, gets them back to the point where they're in contention. And now, oh no, sit down for the last 2 games. I'm sorry, man. Like your boy, Ryan Clark, he used a term that you and I always use all the time, and he's right. It's Bush League. It's fucking Bush League. The way that he's handled him and everything that he's done to this quarterback since he's started and gotten there, it's just piss poor. And if I were a Broncos fan, I'd be really nervous about the future of my organization with this guy at the helm.
Yeah, I'm sure they're holding on to the fact that he was so successful in New Orleans, and hopefully he'll do the same thing here.
He won 1 Super Bowl, and he had one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the league. And that's the thing. Okay, so now you're moving on for Russell Wilson. As we always say, you want to move on? Well, who's stepping into the seat now? Because you not winning the Super Bowl was Stidham. All right. So, like, I don't know
No.
who you think you're bringing in or whatever it is, but as we know, when you're a team that's like out there, like, hey, we just need a quarterback, it's not always that easy and it doesn't always go your way once it actually happens. So, I think that he's going to be served some real humble pie this next season when he tries to come in with somebody else and, he all of a sudden, he ain't got nobody to blame. And all of a sudden, people
Right.
are going to be taking their eyes and putting them on Sean Payton.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him get a little comeuppance next season.
Yeah. You think Lamar is the MVP?
I think so. I think Lamar is the MVP. He's the best player on the best team. And he makes a huge difference with that team. I mean, honestly, if you put any other quarterback in that position, that team's not nearly as successful. He is just a dynamic player. Like I heard somebody, I think it was Orlovsky, say the other day, he has at least 5 plays a game that should end in anybody else it would be a 5 yard loss and ends up being a 20 yard gain, either by pass or by run, and he makes something happen. He's a dynamic player, man. And I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing him in the postseason. I want him to stay healthy, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in the postseason.
Yeah, Orlovsky, he actually said there was 8 plays in that game that no other quarterback, it would have been a total lost play if it was any other quarterback.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, he's just like you said, dynamic is the perfect word for him. He won MVP a few seasons ago. His numbers aren't quite as crazy as that year, but the team doesn't need them to be. They play a little bit more complementary football now. And I told you last week, I thought that with the Ravens and the 49ers, battling against each other, you take those two best teams, you put them against each other, and we're going to come out of that game with an idea of who the MVP is. It was almost like a college game where it was like you have to have that signature moment, and that was like his signature moment. I just thought that especially against that defense, especially with Purdy looking as bad as he did. I think that took him out of the race. I think that Dak was in the race. I think he's now out of the race. And I think really it comes down to Tyreek, Lamar, and CMC. Now, you have the Dolphins versus the Ravens this weekend. And if Tyreek goes off and has like a 200 something yard game and Lamar doesn't play that well, does that change it? Because it's fluid. It changes from week to week. A couple weeks ago, we weren't even talking
Right.
about Lamar. And
Right.
now Lamar is at the forefront. So, with those two teams matching up this week, good job by the NFL schedule makers this year as far as having that be a game late in the season. It's worked out. We could see a shuffle, but right now, yeah, I got to give it to Lamar. He's my MVP.
Yeah, I don't think that Tyreek has a big game like that. I also don't think Tyreek is really there right now because he's not going to get to 2,000 yards. He's just not. There's not enough games left, especially when they're missing that game. I think Lamar. I mean, look, and a lot of people are going to scream Tyreek and/or CMC because they're upset with this award always going to a quarterback. But I think Lamar is deserving this year. I honestly do. I think he's that guy, man. I mean, come on, man. What team wouldn't want Lamar? I mean, give me 5 teams that have a quarterback that if they could have Lamar Jackson instead would say no. I don't think that there is 5 teams out there that would say that. So we'll see. But I think right now Lamar is the guy for MVP for me.
Catch us every week on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification button on all platforms. Really appreciate all the love. We try and stay as current as possible. So episodes are going to drop on Thursdays or Fridays, depending on the Knicks or Jets schedule. And you can find us on all socials at he_did this to me. Love you, big guy.
Love you, kid.